All right. Hey, everybody. It's Noah with the Zone Podcast again. This is Harry Newhand. Go ahead, introduce yourself to everybody and tell them what you do.
Oh, hey, everybody. Thanks, Noah, for having me on as a guest. I appreciate that. At this time in my life, I'm in the sales training space. I teach people, actually, sales professionals that are struggling for a breakthrough or looking for a breakthrough, how to leapfrog and get their mindset right, get their habits, their tactics, their strategies, and go to the next level. So I specialize in teaching, training, mentoring, and coaching salespeople.
Awesome. So, how kind of go into your story a little bit? How'd you get into teaching salespeople?
Well, that's a great question. As you can see, I'm a little bit older, so I've had a tremendous amount of experience out there in the workplace. Been in the sales industry for about 30 plus years. Started off flipping hamburgers in the restaurant industry. And by the time I was 26, I was living paycheck to paycheck and broke. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And so I was introduced to the sales profession, and I saw average people making above average incomes, making more money in a month than I was making in a year. And I said, okay, well, this picture doesn't fit right. So that's when I got into the sales space and I started learning. And I struggled for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And then I finally got around some mentors, some teachers, some trainers, people that did what I do now. And that's when my life started to change. And I got around some people and kind of like the stars all aligned. And within 7 years, I was $1 million earner, earning six figures a month. And that's when things resonated and started to duplicate. And then I found myself, like so many other people, taking it for granted. And I lost most of it. And then I started struggling again. Then I got into the door to door space, took the same lessons that I learned in my previous experience success, applied it to the door to door space, and built one of the largest producing door to door sales teams in the country. And it was magical. We had guys making six figures a year, knocking on doors, selling cable TV. And that was crazy. And we ran that for about 8, 9 years, did really well. And unfortunately, corporate America, when you make that kind of money in corporate America, they changed the rules of the game and they started changing our commissions because we were just making crazy money and we were having fun. But that's when I started working on digital stuff, working on the internet and getting my name out there and expanding my brand. And so now I teach and train people in the sales industry, all aspects of the sales environment, from auto sales, insurance sales to network marketing sales, people that potentially are struggling for a breakthrough, teach them what it takes to have that six-figure mindset.
Well, that was an amazing, well put together story right there. That was awesome. It's probably one of
Thank
the best, like most organized stories that I've heard on this podcast. So I really appreciate that.
you. No problem.
Um, what's up? Well, other than that, like trying to switching gears to those salespeople, um, what really makes like a good salesperson, and what are usually the things that they struggle with the most?
What I found is in especially commission sales, that's really my niche is people that, if you don't sell, you don't eat because you don't make any money. And what I found is probably the number one business, one number one reasons why most salespeople struggle is they have a hard time employing themselves. They have a hard time actually being accountable to themselves. They have procrastination. They don't have the habits it takes. So think of it this way. If you want next level results in your life, it requires next level habits. It requires next level thinking. It requires next level capabilities and of course, next level action. So I teach people that have never made 100,000 or 200,000 a year what those pieces are so that they can achieve more than what they are. And so that's where I have fun. I love teaching professional salespeople. I don't like the fact that they're struggling, but if they're making less than 100,000 a year for 5, 6, 7, 8 years or 10 years or more, and they're satisfied with that, I teach them what it takes because it's only a few degrees. It's only just a few degrees to make the changes necessary to make an above average income, to get up to 200,000 a year. I know it sounds crazy because when I was in the restaurant business, I was making 17,000 a year, living paycheck to paycheck, back in the 80s and 90s. And that's, hearing big numbers like that, I said, that's not possible. I didn't have that mindset. But then I started making that kind of money and I'm like, why doesn't this, everybody know how to do this? Why isn't everybody making this kind of money? So that's what I teach.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because you have a very unique perspective on that. I'm curious as to see your opinion for like sales has been around for a long time, but like you said, a lot of people are like, I don't even believe that's possible. Do you think it's changing more today and more people, or do you think it's probably the same percentage of people that are like, I just don't think sales is possible and everyone's scummy in sales and stuff like that?
Well, sales traditionally has been one of the most respected industries forever in history. And it's only probably in the mid-century, mid last century, where it started getting a bad rap because of the people that do it for negative reasons. You know, the
Right.
art of persuasion can be used for positive good, and it can also be used for positive or for negative bad. And unfortunately, it got a bad rap for those fast talking salespeople that sell you the used car that doesn't work just to get a paycheck. So it did have a bad rap. In some cases it does, because unfortunately there's unethical people in every industry, and sales gets a bad rap. But if you look at the facts, the highest paid professionals in the world are salespeople. What does Jeff Bezos and Amazon do? They sell. What does Apple do? They sell. What does Microsoft do? They sell. The highest paid professionals in the world are salespeople that do it for the right reasons. They care about their clients, they care about their customers, and they're in the service business. They service their people that need what they have. And if you think about you, everything that you have value to, you bought from a salesperson.
Yeah.
And if you're going to get married one day, you got to put on an incredible sales presentation to that girl that's going to go that's going to say yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to put it. So even with that, like, what do you think for the percentage though? Do you think the percentage of the amount of salespeople would be around the same?
Well, in every industry, I look at successful salespeople, because if you look at professional sports, look at professional baseball. There's only 620 that make the pros, but how many baseball players are there in the world? Millions. How many movie stars are there? Millions. But how many of them really make the big money? It's just a fraction. It's about 5% of the population, about 5% of any industry makes the big money. It's a small number. So there's really more room at the top. And here's what I learned. And this is what one of the things that changed my life, flipping hamburgers. They said, if you want to become a six-figure earner, you've got to think like the six-figure earner and do things that all the other people aren't willing to do. So if only 5% of the people are making the big money, you've got to be willing to do what the 95% aren't willing to do or don't know how to do. And that's what I teach, is how to employ yourself. What are the habits it takes to earn 200,000 a year? What are the strategies, how to overcome objections? Learning how to overcome one objection could double your income in the sales industry. Well, I teach how to overcome 20 or 30 objections. So it's amazing what that can do for the average person in their income, their results, their sales results. And we do it in such an elegant way. It's learning how to handle them and overcome them elegantly, not confrontationally.
Right, right. Because when you're in a sale, you want to be on the same side as that person.
You want to care more about the customer than you do about the money you're going to make on the sale. If you
Hmm.
care more about the results that, like if I was going to sell you whatever, if I care more about you getting results on that than I did about the commission I'm going to make, the money's going to hunt me down. If I care more about the paycheck, money's going to flee away from me.
Right, right. And that's why, I mean, I feel like when people first get started in sales, it's just a grind. And then when you kind of mature out of that kind of grind, kind of almost asking for money, almost begging for money, then you get into a point where like, I'm good. If you're, if you don't go with this, I'm good. I just want to make sure you're good. Like, let's make sure that you're okay. I can appreciate where you're coming from, but obviously, let's figure out what the best solution to you. If your best solution isn't with me and it's somewhere else, then let's go ahead and move in that direction, and then we can part ways. It's all good.
You know, that's a great mindset, and that's unfortunately more and more people should have that mindset. I would hope that. And you mentioned something early on that. You said sometimes it's a grind. Sales is a learned skill, just like anything else out there. You have to learn how to. It's not just hey, do you want this? The art of persuasion is a learned skill. It's a learned art. And when you get good at it, your income reflects it. One of the other phrases that helped me change my life said, for things to change, you have to change. From the late, great Jim Rohn. For things to get better, you have to get better. Because if you don't change and you don't get better, 2024 is going to be just like 2023. It ain't getting better and it ain't changing. Nobody's coming to save us. They're not out there going to save us. We've got to take responsibility and learn the skills it takes to be successful.
So that's interesting that you say 2024 is going to be the same if you don't change. But a lot of people, I feel like there's this little spot, and I don't know if you agree with this, but if they go above it into the hurt spot, then it's like, oh, I got to change a little bit. But if they stay in this little middle spot, they just never change. And so I'm curious as to ask, do you agree with that?
You know, one of the hardest things about changing is the unknown.
Right.
And another part of it is, well, everybody that I'm associated with is earning 75,000 a year. If I start making 100, are they still going to be my friends? If I start making 200,000 a year, are they going to still be around me? So one of the hardest parts to realize is that you are very similar to the 5 or 6 closest people to you.
Right.
So if the people that you're close to are not earning and being and doing next level stuff, either they're holding you back or you have to get some new people to hang around. And that's hard for the average person to do.
What's interesting about today's world is those 5 or 6 people, some of those are parasocial relationships, which are just online relationships that you watch somebody, where it's like, I might have 1, 2, 3 friends that are doing what they need to do, but I have, 4, 5, and 6. That's like Jim Rohn. That's like this other guy. It's like Zig Ziglar. Like it's all these people that you watch, and those are your parasocial relationships that you're sitting in. And I feel like that's the first step that someone has to take.
Yeah, getting around that information and knowledge changed my life. I had the distinct pleasure of working under Jim Rohn's tutelage for 3 years in the direct sales industry, and I also listened to the Brian Tracy's and the Zig Ziglars out there and so forth. So those, you're right, you need those. I don't consider those my friends. I consider those my mentors, my teachers. But the combination that I was looking for, the equation that I mentioned, it's the 5 or 6 closest people to you. They could be family members, they could be friends, they could be high school buddies, college buddies, whatever. Whoever you hang around with the most. And if you are more of an introvert and you don't hang around with anybody, but all your activities online, you still have some kind of interaction with those people. So if you look at your environment, we call it center of influence. If you look at your immediate inner circle, you're generally like most of those. And if you are the one that's on the top, they're holding you back. You need to add other people. And that's what I did. Coming from the restaurant business, I was very good at baseball, softball. And I was on championship winning teams in my 20s. And one of my early mentors said, do you want to be on the softball team or do you want to be on the millionaire team? As soon as I heard that, I quit my softball. Haven't played since, and I've been extremely successful. Took 2 companies to over $1 million in income over the next 25 years. So it's a definitely change of mindset.
That's an interesting, because I've heard multiple different things about this, but balance in your life. When you say like the millionaire team versus the softball team, I understand where you're coming from, the network piece. But is it also important to keep those hobbies while you are still working and while you are still trying to make that financial abundance in your life?
It depends what you want. Greatness requires sacrifice. You got to sacrifice something. For me, I sacrificed that. I went all in on my career. I went all in on my future. I went all in on personal growth, personal development to learn the skills that I needed to eventually have what I wanted to have. And I wasn't getting it from playing baseball. I'm not saying you should go out there and quit your team. That was just the right thing for me. That's what I was willing to sacrifice to go all in on my personal growth, personal development to become somebody different than I was. Now, I'm not talking about personality-wise. I'm still the same person. But business-wise, it's a whole new deal.
I want to sit on that for a second because even for when you're saying sacrifices, I'm immediately thinking of a few that are just coming in my mind right now. And as kind of like an older guy looking towards like a younger guy, um, is there anything that I'm trying regrets kind of come in my head of like, hey, you know, let's make sure we at least enjoy this period. I still got a 10-year period of, where people are, it's okay, it's socially acceptable to go out to clubs, stuff like that. It's still socially acceptable. I probably have like 10 years of that left. So I'm like, I'm not sure how much I should sacrifice because I haven't really been going out or doing much. I just purely focus on business. And I don't know, ask like, what is your advice?
Well, if you look at the statistics, and when I was your age, I assume you're in your 20s, right?
Mhm.
Okay. When I was in my 20s, I just looked at where I was at 26 years old, living paycheck to paycheck, and I was dissatisfied. I wasn't making the kind of income that would provide me with the things that I wanted. I wanted the nice cars, I wanted the nice house, I wanted the nice clothes, I wanted those things, and what I was earning, the equation didn't work. So I needed to make some changes. So I did still go out to clubs, but I didn't go out as often. And now I go out with my girlfriend. We go out just over the weekend. We went to a movie and stopped at a local pub and had a couple of drinks. So we still do that now, but I wouldn't be able to do it with the freedom that I have now if I didn't pay the price back in my 20s. That's the way I feel. So, I mean, I had a great knowledge, not a great knowledge, but I learned about real estate along the way of making the money that I made. I never did real estate as far as a career, but I learned how to buy and sell different pieces of real estate. I learned how to buy rental properties. I learned how to buy different things. So I learned those things instead of spending my time watching TV, spending my time on Netflix, spending my time doing things that weren't moving the needle for me and my business. They weren't the right things for me to be doing at that time. Could I have done those things? Sure. But I learned that most people, unfortunately, a high number of them, by the time they're 60 years old, 65 years old, are dependent on somebody else to provide for their needs. They can't travel. They can't do the things that they've always wanted to do. They find themselves nearing the end of their work career and they're reliant on, government subsidies. And I didn't want to be in that place.
What about relationships when it comes down to uh, marriages, stuff like that? Is that something that most people in a younger spot should probably think about pushing that off a little bit?
Well, everybody's different. Everybody's different. I think it depends on your partner. Unfortunately, I may not be the best person to ask because I had two failed marriages. One was my fault, one wasn't. And I have four beautiful children from that, and we're closer than we've ever been, me and my kids. So, I made my relationship with my kids work. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for me and my ex-spouses. So I may not be, certainly probably not the best person to ask. I can tell you what not to do. that would probably help you. But as far as having a successful relationship, the relationship I'm in right now with my girlfriend's a 10-year one, and it's been extremely successful. So I learned the lessons from those. But for me, I got married the first time when I was 30. So I waited. I was not young. I went career first. My goal when I got into the sales industry was to spend more time with my kids in a week than my dad did with me in a month. And I accomplished that goal. And I was able to invest that time. It wasn't always every single day because I was on the road, but the time that I did spend, I was able to spend more time with them in a week, more time with them in a day than my dad was able to spend with me in a week, and more in a week than he was able to spend with me in a month. And so the sales industry gave me the flexibility to do that. The successes that I've had gave me the opportunity to do that. I'm not sure if I answered your question directly because I believe everybody's different and everybody's going to go through their struggles. But I think it depends on your partner. If they're willing to stand by you and do what you do, I think it helps and accept you for who and what you are.
Mhm. So it's just really about it depends person to person. That's why you can't give that specific advice to anyone. But still, as a general rule, there's got to be sacrifice. Things got to be paid, right? There's got to be sacrifice in order to get where you're trying to go. Um,
Yeah,
but
like I said, success, you're paying the success tax. Greatness requires sacrifice, whether it's time, energy, money, commitment. It requires you TV time. There was a period of 6, 7 years I didn't watch TV at all in that process.
that
I
is a
mean,
very long time.
long time, but it wasn't serving me. It was
Yeah.
taking me away from talking to another client, recruiting another person, building what I was building at that particular time. So not many people aren't willing to do that. But if you look, what did people do before TV came out? They invented things.
Yeah.
They invented how to cut corn better, how to cut crops better, how to do their automobiles. I mean, most of that was done before the TV. The Industrial Revolution happened before the TV was invented.
Right. Just seems like we're slowly getting to the. I think the divide just of the one percenters and the. I think it's just getting larger, just because in knowledge, like that, we have all the knowledge around us, but not a lot of people are willing to take that. They're not willing to look at that and really internalize it. Read a book. Like, I mean, I didn't even. I was surprised by the statistics. I can't bring them off my head, but I think like 50% of people haven't read a book since high school and when they're 30. It's like as long as you read a book, as long as you take that simple action, you have gotten ahead of 50% of people.
And now it's so much easier because you can listen to a book while you're working out, while you're walking, while you're driving. You can listen to it and feed your mind with knowledge. The mind is a growing thing. And if you're feeding it, just like your body, if you feed your body junk, what do you end up with? At 60 years old, you're sick, you're on medication, you're overweight, you're unhealthy, and you die. It's a slow death. Mine's the same thing. If you're feeding it junk, that's what junk in, junk out. If you're feeding it knowledge, then you can express the knowledge. And I thank God, and I'm extremely grateful that I took the opportunity in my younger years, and even today I read consistently to feed my brain knowledge, and now I can teach that knowledge to other people.
That's interesting for actual reading because I have a special question for that. Um, how do you internalize more of your knowledge when you read? Because I read all the time, and sometimes I really don't remember most of it. I think the reading while actually listening is the ultra way to get all the information. But what are some like tidbits or something that you've taken throughout the years for learning more effectively?
Well, you're right. As far as reading and listening at the same time, there's a higher retention rate. That's been proven scientifically and medically. So you do get that extra stuff. Not everybody's willing to do that, and not everybody has to do that. If you're just listening, it's better than not picking up a book and reading in 10 years, right? Something is better than nothing. If you can read and listen at the same time, that's the best. What I did before these came out, the iPod, the ear pods and whatever, I took notes, and I still take notes. If I'm reading a physical book, I highlight it. I go back and take notes. If I'm listening to it on the headphone while I'm walking, I stop. I hear something great. I stop. I pause, and I send myself a text of a phrase or a word or an idea that I heard on the last recording, and then I push play again. So I'm constantly taking notes. Like I just listened to a book. It's called Relentless. Phenomenal book, and it's about the guy that actually worked with Dwayne Wade, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, and explains the process and the idea of what is relentless. And there were some great things in there that I was able to stop quite often, send myself a text, send myself an email, write down in my notepad a phrase on my phone while I was taking a walk around the neighborhood. And I did that for a week until I was finished with the book. So taking notes is a great way to add to retention, and then go back and review your notes.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've never really done it. Every single time I have an idea, I'm like, oh, I need to go write it on the whiteboard. But I need to start taking notes for everybody out there. Y'all need to take it from, all right, cool. You're in that 50%, you're in that 60, 80% where you've already picked up the book, you've read it fully. Now you got to go get in that 1% and start highlighting and writing things down.
Yeah,
Um,
something I learned from Jim Rohn. He said, "Don't leave your fortune to your memory." That's why most people are broke.
that is, yeah,
Yeah, if it's worth remembering, it's worth writing down.
yeah, that's why I don't know if you're the type of person who usually like walks and kind of honestly like kind of like a meditation walk, where you're just sitting there and you're just talking to yourself and you're really getting all your ideas out there. That's one of those things that Jim Rohn like quote of like that's why you're not at the place you want to be is because of your memory. I think I definitely need to bring a notebook next time that I do that all the time, and I'll go through these crazy things with myself and be at a better spot, and then I have none of it on my paper.
Yeah, I call those gratitude walks. I take a gratitude walk where I'm grateful for where I'm at in life, the gifts I've been given, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to give back. And then I get ideas flowing through meditation or through walking, however it is. I would encourage you to write that down. Write is whatever you can now. Invest time in yourself. Hire yourself 20 minutes a day, whatever you got to do. That's your time. That's you time. Hour a day, 2 hours a day, whatever that is. And that's where you can really grow faster.
Kind of switching gears a little bit to back to your door to door days. I know you we were talking about it before we got on. What's one of the most memorable customers that you've had?
Oh, this is exciting. Thank you for asking me that question. This is kind of fun. I actually had a trainee with me. We're going door to door selling cable TV, cable, internet, and phone, the triple play here in the Detroit area. And I actually have a recording from him telling the story because he remembered it more than I did. But I think I've told it so many times now, I remember it. But I took him up to a door. He was right behind me because I was training him. Older guy like me, and we were doing it. Ended up becoming one of my top people after this, but this kind of set the tone. Knocked on the front door, and the guy that answered was really rude. He goes, "Oh, not interested." And he slams the door. So we walked off the porch, and he started walking to the next house. And I said, "Come here." He goes, "What?" I said, "We're going to go to the side door." So we went to the side door. He goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "We're going to get in a fight." I knocked on the side door. Guy answered. He goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, the guy at the front door was kind of rude, so I figured I'd come over here at the side door. I might get somebody else." And he started laughing. He said, "Come on in." He said, "I never heard that before." He goes, "Tell me what you got." And he ended up signing up for the triple play. We ended up writing the deal.
That is that's that's probably the best door to door story I've heard. That is amazing. You're like, yeah, well, let's go ahead. Yeah, let's go ahead and talk to him on the side door.
Yeah, it was great. And because I had the confidence to do that and write the order, I actually taught the trainee what you could do, what it takes to earn a higher level of income. What is a salesperson willing to do? What are they willing to learn? See, I learned enough and I know enough and had the confidence in what I had. What I had was far superior than the competition, far superior. And all I wanted him to do is hear my story. I didn't care if he bought or not. All I wanted him to do is hear it. If he heard it and he actually told him what I could do for him and he said no, I'd have all the respect in the world for him. But because he shut the door, he never got to hear what I was there for. He never got to hear what he was actually saying no to.
Right. What do you kind of switching up a little bit to even the teams because you were talking about mentoring? How does a sales organization really build a solid team?
How do they build a solid team? There's a couple of components that I believe are necessary. One, you've got to have. Let's take for granted that they have a good company and a good product. Okay, so we're going to take that aside. But to build a good team is one, you've got to have that belief in your product and company, so that when you bring somebody in, they can feed off of that belief. They can feed off that until they get their own. Once they get their own, then it's easy to duplicate. But the next thing is to have a simple, duplicatable system. So, for instance, when I was going door to door, I had a script. It was about 2 pages long. Took me a few minutes to go through it, and it was working. But I was stuck at less than 50,000 a year. And my partner called me up and he said, "Hey, have you seen Brian and Kenny's script?" And I said, "No." I said, "Send it to me." So he sends it to me. It's only 4 paragraphs. I said, "Where's the rest of it?" He goes, "That's it." I said, "Well, this can't work." He said, "Then don't use it." I said, "Well, wait a minute. How are they doing?" He goes, "They're doing better than you." I said, "Okay, I'll use it." So I started using that 4 paragraph script, and within 30 days, my income tripled. And so what I found out was is that my personality, my salesmanship, and my talent are not duplicatable, but the script is. I could hand it to I got good at handing it to somebody and said, "Read this word for word and watch what happens. Read this word for word." And I would follow them until they got it word for word and they were making sales. And I could teach anybody that didn't know how to sell how to read this. I can teach them how to handle objections later, but right now just get the deal done, get the customer's interest. Once they're interested, I can teach you the rest. But that's what I recommend to anybody building a team is have a duplicatable system, whether it's a script, whether it's a process, whether it's a thing that you do, have a system in place that's duplicatable where you can plug people in and say, "Do this," and it'll work.
Man, what's that script?
I'd be more than happy to send it to you. It was so good I copyrighted it, and I even see some of my old competitors that picked it up, and we actually had spies coming into our interviews and trainings because they wanted to know how we were doing so well, and I'd be more than happy to send it to you.
Okay. Well, shoot, would it be okay if I put in the description, or do we?
Well, once I send it, you can do whatever you want with it. You can post it. You can give it to anybody that you want. Just let them know that it came from me. That's all I ask. Or have them get in touch with me, and I'd be more than happy to get it out there.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, everybody, I'm gonna put all of his information in the description, so reach out for sure. Because this is the guy. After all this whole conversation, you know that he already knows how to train everybody.
Yeah, we call it the $2 million 4 paragraph script. And by the way, they can send me an email. It's harrynouhan@gmail.com. Harry Nouhan @gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to me, and it's a Word document, so I'll send it to you in a Word document.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, the last piece that I kind of want to get to, because we're getting close to time, was how do salespeople start utilizing AI?
Wow. It's a new thing. There's so many different ways to use it. They're still finding out ways to use it. But one of the ways that I'm using it is when I'm prospecting. I'll go on there and ask it a question. Where can I find, and then I list my ideal client. Where can I find salespeople that are making between 35 and 200,000 a year, 35,000, 200,000 a year? Where can I find them in Facebook groups? And give me 20 Facebook groups where I can find these people. And it gave me 20 Facebook groups. And so I just plug those in, do a search, and I find all the different groups that they're in. I think one of the groups is where you actually found me, or I found you. One of those groups that we were in is how we got connected. I put a post on there, or I made a comment on somebody else's post, and you found me. So that was one way of doing a search. The other way is it'll help you build a script. I mentioned earlier how important a script is. You can use the ChatGPT to build a script, to build your messaging. The message for leaving a message on voicemail, the message for emailing, the messages for text. It's nobody knows what the limits are on it. It's just so good. So anytime you have a question, just ask ChatGPT, the free version I use. The other people that use the pay version, they get so much more out of it. It'll actually write anything you want. So I would challenge you or encourage you to use it whenever you have something to write.
That's pretty solid for all those salespeople out there, because I feel like sales is a lot of creativity, and in order to blossom that creativity, you need to know what works at first, because it gives you those ideas and then they start running and then you go in your separate direction. But if you don't have that first framework where it's at, it's going to take you a long time to build that framework so you can move it forward further. But other than that, I appreciate you coming on here, Harry. I'm going to have everything in the description below, so everyone check them out. I'll put the email in there, and then everybody request for that PDF because that's something I'm trying to check out as well. But other than that, I appreciate you getting on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation. Hopefully, I've given value to your listeners, and we can get some feedback. That'd be awesome. So, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.
All right. I'll catch y'all.